On April 21, 2025, the modern world was rocked by a loss of historic magnitude. The Pope had died. Today, with heavy hearts and solemn ceremonies, he was laid to rest. World leaders, dignitaries, and influential figures gathered from every corner of the globe to honor his memory. Yet not all chose the same path to pay their respects. Some found their own, more unconventional ways to say farewell. 250,000 souls gathered, a sea of mourning humanity, to bid their final farewell to the Pope at the Basilica of St. Mary Major. They came from every corner of the world, drawn by grief, reverence, and the weight of history. The Pope Mobile, now transformed into a hearse, made its slow, solemn approach to the basilica, carrying the coffin that held the man whose voice had once moved nations. As the vehicle came to a halt, the casket was lifted high, so that even from afar, the faithful could catch a last, heart-wrenching glimpse of their shepherd. The rite unfolded according to the ancient prescriptions of the Ordo Exequiarum Romani Pontificis, presided over by Cardinal Camerlengo Kevin Farrell. Around him stood the grieving dignitaries, religious leaders, and the Pope's own family, gathered as prescribed by the official notice from the office for the liturgical celebrations. It was a ceremony steeped in tradition, weighed down with centuries of ritual and sorrow, and as the final blessing echoed beneath the towering columns of the basilica, the clock struck 1:30 p.m., and the liturgical ceremony came to its end. A chapter of history had closed. A soul had been entrusted to eternity. The funeral drew not only the sorrowful clergy, robed in solemn vestments, but also a procession of the world's most powerful and influential figures, each arriving to pay their respects beneath the heavy skies. Among them stood Prince William, his expression grave and unreadable, Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, marked by a quiet, stoic dignity, and Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, standing resolute as her nation mourned one of its greatest sons. Yet perhaps none drew more attention than the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who arrived not in the traditional black, but in a vivid blue suit. To many, it was an unmistakable breach of protocol, a glaring sign of disrespect on a day meant for solemn unity. But was it truly an act of defiance? Or was there a deeper meaning, one yet to be understood, hidden beneath the bright fabric and the storms gathering above? What was it really? No one knows, but maybe we have some theories. 1. The hidden deep state. As the world's leaders filed solemnly into the Basilica of St. Mary Major, draped in black to honor the passing of the Pope, one figure immediately shattered the image of unity, Donald Trump, stepping boldly into the funeral in a vivid blue suit. To most, it appeared as a tasteless act of arrogance, a man unwilling to follow even the simplest of traditions. But to those who see behind the facade, it was something far more calculated, a silent protest against the very institution he had come to bury. Conspiracy theorists claim that Trump's choice of blue was a deliberate, wordless condemnation of the Vatican itself, an ancient power that, in their view, hides dark secrets behind its marble walls. For decades, they whisper, the Vatican has been more than a spiritual guide, it has been a political force, manipulating governments, economies, and ideologies from the shadows. To such theorists, the Pope was not merely a religious figure, but the public face of a hidden empire. By refusing to wear black, the color of mourning, submission, and conformity, Trump signaled his rejection of their authority. Blue, a color of freedom, rebellion, and the open sky, became a banner of defiance against centuries of control. He did not come to grieve, he came to deliver a message, I do not stand with you. I never have. It was an act of subtle rebellion, a statement so profound that it didn't need to be spoken. In a gathering where every move was choreographed to the finest detail, Trump's blue suit broke the spell, a flash of insurgency in the heart of an empire built on ritual and obedience. And while the media focused on decorum, on appearances, the true message hung in the air like thunder before a coming storm. 2. A cryptic sign of impending political moves. When Donald Trump stepped out of his motorcade and into the solemn air surrounding the Basilica of St. Mary Major, the world gasped, not for his words, but for what he wore. In a sea of black suits and mourning veils, he alone was clad in striking blue. To the untrained eye, it seemed like nothing more than an act of disrespect, a disregard for sacred tradition. But to those who watched closely, to those who understand that nothing on the world stage happens by accident, it was a message, loud, deliberate, and chilling. The blue suit, conspiracy theorists argue, was no mere fashion misstep. It was a signal to a hidden faction, a shadowy order working quietly behind the veil of world events. For decades, whispers have spread of power structures that operate not within the walls of the Vatican, but beyond them, factions that see the Church as a relic of a dying age, standing in the way of a new world governed not by faith, but by control, technology, and unseen influence. By wearing blue, Trump aligned himself, subtly, but unmistakably, with this group. Blue, the color of calm domination, of silent control, and of hidden knowledge, was chosen for a reason. It was a sign to those who understand the codes: the old guard has fallen, and the new is ready to rise. The death of the Pope was not just a funeral for a man, it was the symbolic end of an era. And standing among the grieving leaders of the world, Trump declared without speaking a word that he knew, and that he was not mourning. The cameras caught the blue suit. The world saw it. But only a few understood its true weight, a flash of truth in a theater of shadows. 3. Secret allegiance or hidden message to a shadow faction. When Donald Trump stepped out of his motorcade and into the solemn air surrounding the Basilica of St. Mary Major, the world gasped, not for his words, but for what he wore. In a sea of black suits and mourning veils, he alone was clad in striking blue. To the untrained eye, it seemed like nothing more than an act of disrespect, a disregard for sacred tradition. But to those who watched closely, to those who understand that nothing on the world stage happens by accident, it was a message, loud, deliberate, and chilling. The blue suit, conspiracy theorists argue, was no mere fashion misstep. It was a signal to a hidden faction, a shadowy order working quietly behind the veil of world events. For decades, whispers have spread of power structures that operate not within the walls of the Vatican, but beyond them, factions that see the Church as a relic of a dying age, standing in the way of a new world governed not by faith, but by control, technology, and unseen influence. By wearing blue, Trump aligned himself, subtly, but unmistakably, with this group. Blue, the color of calm domination, of silent control, and of hidden knowledge, was chosen for a reason. It was a sign to those who understand the codes: the old guard has fallen, and the new is ready to rise. The death of the Pope was not just a funeral for a man, it was the symbolic end of an era. And standing among the grieving leaders of the world, Trump declared without speaking a word that he knew, and that he was not mourning. The cameras caught the blue suit. The world saw it. But only a few understood its true weight, a flash of truth in a theater of shadows. In the grand theater of world events, where nothing is ever truly accidental, Donald Trump's decision to wear a blue suit to the Pope's funeral stands as a mystery that continues to ignite speculation. Was it a coded allegiance to hidden powers, a silent act of rebellion against ancient institutions, or a harbinger of political storms yet to come? To the ordinary observer, it was simply a breach of etiquette, but to those who watched the subtle movements of history's great players, it was a signal, deliberate, potent, and chilling in its implications. In an age where symbols carry more weight than speeches and where the true battles are fought in shadows and whispers, even the color of a suit can become a declaration of war. Whether Trump's choice was an act of defiance, a message to unseen allies, or a warning of chaos on the horizon, one thing is certain: the world that gathered to mourn the past may soon find itself grappling with a very different future, one already written in the bold, unignorable shade of blue.